Yeah,
What
We
can make
here.
it better?
that's right. We have another segment, another live discussion with a special guest, a very special guest, Mr. Kevin Jenkins.
All right, man.
Hello,
How
All
you?
hello,
right, all right.
hello. How's everybody doing?
So wonderful in yourself.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Good today.
All right.
Very blessed. Thank you.
Yeah, man. So we here. We definitely appreciate you coming through to come and talk with us. This is what can make it better. Creative Collection. We just like to have a genuine dialogue about solutions, which turns into actions and just make the world better, make our environments better, one step at a time. Just coming up with ideas. It all starts with what's in the mind. So we're glad to have you talk with us.
Problem. I'm honored that you invited me to come and speak to you. I think it's
No
great what you're
problem.
doing. I think it's great that you're building this platform to have this deeper conversation. And, I'm just excited to know that you guys are working so hard to spread the truth like a mantra. I really appreciate that, by the way.
Likewise, likewise.
Likewise. Thank you.
So with that said, shout out to Goldfinger Visions, Mixed by Hugo, Squeaky Gems. That's the network right there. So all the sponsors are shouted out. And so now we have our special guest, Kevin Jenkins here, and he's gonna introduce himself.
Oh, good evening, everyone. I hope you're all having a great evening. And again, thank you for inviting me on what can make it better. And I really appreciate it. I really am watching you guys do this. This is actually great. And I understand that this is a new kind of platform that you guys have been working with some other people to build out. I think that's very creatively genius. Well, if I have to admire you for that. I don't see a lot of young people doing a lot of great stuff like this, especially operating in our world, that young people are now building platforms, and now young people like yourself are talking about how to build a better immune system, how to make being healthy affordable, and really changing well care from sick care to well care. So I got to tell you, I'm impressed, and I really, really am happy that I came on tonight to have a conversation with you. And whatever you want to talk about, you can talk about it with me. Of course, I'm Kevin Jenkins. I'm creator of the Urban Global Health Alliance. I'm a founder of that. I think you might know me well from that nonprofit I started a couple of years ago to really focus on changing the culture of health in this country, around advocacy, public policy, and education. And moving on, and then creating Freedom Travel Alliance, making sure that, as Americans and as human beings, we will never be told again that we cannot travel without a mask or travel without an injection, that we'll be able to travel like free sovereign individuals. And I thought that company was one of the most important companies I helped to start in the last couple of years. And then, of course, you followed me over to the Zelenko Freedom Foundation, where I'm the co-chair. Dr. Zelenko asked me and Ann Vanderstill to help build out his foundation, not realizing that when he asked us that he was going to be dying a week later. That this great humanitarian, this great American asked us to step in the gap, take over his foundation, and build that foundation on 5 principles of building new leadership, effective new leadership through our Zelenko Fellows, incubating businesses through looking at biotech companies and companies like this, whoever this young man is, looking at companies that we can build out in the future that's focused on freedom and focused on our body sovereignty and focused on giving people access to all the things that they need in their lives. And on top of that, public policy and education, working tirelessly to build a pool of public policy initiatives that we can push throughout the rest of the country that will continue to help us to push back against Big Pharma and the government that has been failing us, and coming up with proactive public policy, and then working on how do we create new educational ecosystem for our kids to thrive in. We understand that the public schools are dangerous for our children. We understand majority of our private schools and top universities now, they've been grooming our kids for all kinds of things. And I think America is waking up to that. On top of that, I've traveled 350,000 miles in this country talking to Americans, black and white, talking about how do we come together to fight against the tyranny of our time, like Malcolm and Martin and Ida and all of the great Americans that came before us that fought against the tyranny of their time. And, I got to tell you, America is waking up all over the country. People are paying attention. People are asking questions. I'm seeing more men involved. I'm seeing more young women involved. I'm seeing more families coming out and saying, hey, wait a minute. We have to fight for every part of our lives now, because we realize the global tyrants want to control us and push us back into slavery, which I call modern day slavery. Wire our bodies and minds to be commoditized at their whim, at their will. And prior to that, I've been a business person all my life. My family's been in government and development. Our strong suit now in our family is politics and development. I've lived a very, very diverse and blessed life. So I come from a perspective that I understand all of it. I understand what the global tyrants are doing. I understand what the government is doing. I understand what all of the foundations and agencies that have been captured by the global tyrants are doing. I understand what the courts are now, the roles the courts that are playing. And I realized that when I was watching this, that we needed to stand in the gap and we needed to do something for our children. So when I first started on this journey, I started on this journey fighting and will continue to fight for women that had vaccine injured children when they were trying to take their religious exemption and medical exemptions away from them. A young man named Jamel Holly called me up and came to my house and told me, Kevin, there's 10,000 people down in Trenton, New Jersey, fighting for their religious exemption. And I have to be honest, I looked at him like, why are you telling me? I don't feel like fighting for people anymore. They need to fight for themselves. I'm trying to figure out something else, I'm going to be 60 in the next couple of months. So this is the part of my life that either I want to enjoy it, but God had something else for me to do. So in the last 2.5 years, I've traveled all over this country and spoke to over 1.5 million people talking about, what it means to be pushed into modern slavery, talking about what it means to be a black man fighting for all human beings on the planet. And I've learned an awful, awful lot about this country. And I've learned a lot about the people that live in this country. That's why I realized that this whole race narrative, which I never really bought into that much anyway, because I understand that, we are in control of our own destiny. We're in control of our own economics. We're in control of our own politics. And when I hear people play on the race card all the time, I call them lazy activists. They're lazy activists because it's bigger than that. We have a group of people in this world that believe they have the right to rewrite the DNA of our faith. They have the right to control our bodies. They have the right to control our minds. They have the right to groom our children. They have the right to tell us when to earn and not to earn. And I believe that, this is the greatest fight of all time. This fight is bigger than any fight we've ever had to preserve humanity and fight for what God has given us. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a father. I'm a husband of 29 years. I have 2 lovely daughters, 2 lovely grandsons. I have another grandchild on the way. And my family has always been highly engaged in building community, highly engaged in fighting against tyranny, highly engaged in how do we build economic systems that our people can thrive and have ownership. Because I believe Black Americans have made several critical mistakes. And one of the mistakes they've made is that they're the bed wench of the Democratic Party. And I got to tell you something, it is fascinating to see so many Black Americans still giving up their power, giving up their voice, giving up all of themselves to a party that does not value life, does not value family, and especially value Black men. And I think that, there's a reckoning coming for us because we keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. And, when I say that, people always ask me about the Republican Party, and I bust out laughing. I say, why are we talking about the Republican Party? You don't negotiate with them. I'm talking about the party you give 95% of your power to, 95% of your body to. 95% to the people that are trying to push you into slavery. So I find that fascinating when people take that fallback position. I think a lot of young people in this country are in jeopardy because I don't think they clearly understand what's getting ready to happen to them. They clearly don't understand what's been happening to them. They clearly don't understand why their families have been so broken. They clearly don't understand why they have been so miseducated. And I have to tell you, a lot of that is our fault. Because we've been looking at the barbarians at the gate instead of looking at the barbarians inside the gate that looks like us. And that is the tragedy of the Black denial that's occurring in this country. And I dare anybody in this country to dispute it. I always challenge people. If you have a problem with what I'm saying, call me up and debate me in public. Because I'm very well versed in, global economics, well versed in Black history, well versed in African history, well versed in government affairs, well versed in economic development, community development. I know what the world looks like. I've lived in the world. I've operated in the world. I've ran businesses in the world. I've hired people. I've worked. I've been around. So I kind of understand what we're fighting right now. And I'm just happy and I feel blessed that God chose me for this moment to fight for all of the people on this planet. Because what is life worth if you're not fighting for what's right?
Right.
Amen. Definitely.
Right. Yeah, man. I want to say, man, you got a head on your shoulders, really, for real. And I like how some of the things you said earlier when you first started. You just said you like specifically target, different intricate areas of the issues going on, like when it comes down to children, tyranny, when it comes down to education, when it comes down to different forms of sicknesses and stuff like that. Like you literally sit there and engage with each on a high level to the point where you interact with it, to the point where you at these places, you're doing these things, you meet these people's on a high level. So I think that's just great. It shows where your mind is, and I couldn't only imagine like what a family of people like you is doing.
Yeah, well, my family has been very, very important and been very, very intricate in this country for a long period of time. But we are great. We are very disappointed by what we're seeing from our people. Our people have been put to sleep. They are presently right now a day away from being in the morgue. And, they're all talking about stuff that's not relevant. I mean, if you look at what they're doing to our kids in school, grooming them, telling them they can be anything. If you're a boy, you can be a girl. If you're a girl, you could be a man. I mean, that is inappropriate. I mean, when a person gets older and wants to make a decision about its orientation, I think it's fine. I have no problems with that. But our public schools have always been failing our kids because we don't own education. Black Americans don't own education. In the early 1800s, when we were freed and when we were freed as slaves, you know what we did? I want to tell all of you on this show. The black slave got up when they were free. They didn't have anything, no clothes, no money, no nothing. Got on the road, and the two things they wanted to do was look for their loved ones, and they wanted to learn how to read and write. That's why we created this loose federation of schools. That's why we built our own schools. That's why we built our own businesses, because we understood that ownership was very, very key. Not ownership of just property, but ownership of our agency. And I don't think Black Americans understand the complexities of that, because we gave all of our ownership away to be a part of a class of people that never valued us anyway. That's very interesting. When I say that to people, they're like, well, what do you mean by that? I said, think about it. In the 30s and the 40s and the 50s, with all of the horror that was going on in this country, we didn't have unemployment like this. We didn't have broken families like this. We didn't have sons roaming the street killing each other. We didn't have women walking around here looking like zombies. We didn't have all of that. We didn't have children being taught by people that were telling them they could be anything they want, or teaching them to be anti-Black, or teaching them to operate against themselves as human beings and their families. We didn't have any of that. And now, coming out of the 60s and the civil rights movement, so when people talk about the civil rights movement, and I bust out laughing. I was like, those laws were watered down right after they were created. They moved us right back on the plantation. But what they did that was so clever this time, they got Black people that look like us to sell us garbage as hope. Black people that look like us that are guards of the oligarchs. Guard dogs for the oligarchs. These Black people, we don't want to deal with that we have to get rid of them for us to move forward. So I'm really focused on that. And I always tell people, if you don't like what I'm saying, come and debate me in public. I can go from Du Bois, I can go from Booker T. Washington, I can go from Malcolm X, I can go from Ida B. Wells, I can go from Dr. Diop, I can go from Dr. Jeffries, I can go from, Dr. Yakin Bennett, I can go from, I know them all. When I talk about nation building and I talk about power and I talk about looking beyond this race narrative that's keeping us trapped in victimhood, people look at me stunned. I said, well, you're looking at me stunned because you've accepted your victimhood. You've accepted your failure. You've accepted your brokenness. You've accepted your broken families. You've accepted that Black men and women aren't living together and raising their families. You've accepted your poverty. And and let me tell you, someone said something. I'm trying to remember this young man's name. But I got to tell you, I wrote it down and I never forgot it because I was stunned that came out of his mouth so eloquently, not because I thought he was stupid, but it was just masterful the way he said it. Victimhood is a corporation in this country. That Black Americans have been eating at the trough, right, of the grievance industrial complex. And that was a very profound statement because everything about us and everything we talk about is about being a victim, accepting victimhood, even when it comes to our health. Look what we did coming out of the 80s. We turned our bodies over to Big Pharma. We turned our bodies away from holistic health. We turned our bodies and we gave our children, we gave our women, we gave our men, we gave our bodies to Big Pharma. That's why we're the sickest group of people on the planet Earth. Never mind eugenics. Never mind what they've done to in Africa. Never mind what the pharmaceutical industry has been doing to us. We have Black Americans that are pushing modern day slavery. We have Black Americans that are telling you it's all right to take an experimental biologic. We have Black American leaders and Black American pastors and Black American athletes and Black American entertainers, which represent freaking zero, not the entertainers of the past. that were fighting during the civil rights movement. They're not the athletes of our time that were going into these arenas and boxing and fighting for blackness and black greatness. They're not the actors and actresses that were going around being dignified and talking about how do we become actors to tell our story. Now you have a bunch of idiots, a bunch of embarrassing people in the music industry looking like prostitutes and selling garbage to our people every day. But our people now are elevating them as some great people. What a goddamn shame. We should be ashamed of ourselves. You turn on BET now, all you see is what? Crime, sex, mayhem. They moved us from Bill Cosby, family, college, extended family, to now fake hair, fake eyelashes, fake asses. You want me to get real? Okay, let's dig deep, right? And you see BET and you turn on that TV and you let your kids watch that. You turn on your TV and you let your kids watch all that garbage. And when they start acting out, you don't know what to do. It's just like our health. We're still taking ourselves to these hospitals and them giving us prescriptions and killing our kidneys, killing our minds, killing our souls. They have majority of our kids are on Ritalin. Majority of our young boys are walking around with their pants off their ass. And then now I think it's funny. I've watched this now. I've been writing about this. I've seen a lot of black brothers in the country now. They're having natural hair, right? And so I asked the brother, I said, why do you have your hair like that? Oh, it's just me. What do you mean it's just you? I said, if you're going to have that, take care of it. If you're going to have that, be regal. If you're going to have that, educate yourself. If you're going to have that, understand what independence means. I'm listening to you,
man. I like this guy, man. He really telling a lot of truth. I had a question for you, right? How do you think? Well, is it possible? Do you believe it's possible for us to not only separate ourselves from the sellouts, but also be able to correctly identify them and weed them out?
Yeah, you can see them every day. All you got to do is turn on MSNBC and see what black people that work for the corporate. That's a very good question. What you have to do is just do the work and investigate who they are.
I'm not really talking about, people like us that actually have a brain. I'm talking about really like the masses, like us as a collective, because majority of us don't even realize that we're actually fighting a battle.
Well, I just think shows like this and all the work you guys have been doing in New York, I think one of the things I did when I was younger, I used to have all of these community meetings all the time. I ran nonprofits all my life. And I hate them, but I'm running a foundation right now, so it goes to show you how crazy I am. I just got to tell you, I think that when you go directly to the community and you start having these charrettes and you start talking to people about what's going on in your community, I know it's very frustrating. It can be very frustrating because you actually have people come to the meeting or people that are coming to the group that try to persuade you that that's not reality. But I think you work with your group first and you expand it to like minds and you keep expanding it and you keep building it, sharing information, having deeper conversations, building this show, this platform that you have now. I'm going to tell people about this platform. I think it's a one day at a time. Like, listen, I would have never been able to speak to 1.5 million people if I didn't travel every day. I traveled every day. I think I've been to 65 cities and 40 states the last 2 years, 2.5 years, going on 2.5 years, talking to Americans and figuring out what they felt. And I think the more you do that groundwork like you're doing now, even if you gave meetings in your community, I would even come to one, and invite us to come and have a bigger conversation outside of the COVID narrative. Because the COVID narrative is big. What they're doing in the banking industry. We have to teach our people. And a lot of our people want to still be slaves. Well, you have to let them be.
Right. I say that all the time.
You have to let them be. The ones that want to be slaves, but let me tell you why you guys aren't slaves. Because when you were born, just like me and just like older people before you, we were born for this moment. We were endowed by something. God touched us for this moment to activate our minds and our souls, our humanity and us to fight against the tyranny of our time. So you're really special people. I don't want you to think that you're just, some people just trying to have a discussion. The reason why you're having a discussion is because God chose you for this discussion. That's why you're showing so much God courage right now and even doing what you're doing. So, Roy, I think it's what you're doing now and going out and having one-on-ones and having small meetings and, communicating and sharing and using all of your skill set in the technology space, because all of you guys probably know how to do this better than me. I know nothing. I have to hire somebody to fix everything for me. And I have a daughter that's a genius at it, but she lives in California.
I get it.
This is what I mean about taking your power back and not being a victim. If they're censoring us, I'm the most censored person probably in the world, one of them. I'm in the top 10. I'm on the disinformation list. I mean, they've censored me all around the world, but they can't because everybody that I speak to becomes my proxy. When you have a platform like this and you guys build it out and young people start, getting involved, and you should be open to everybody's opinion, but I'm just going to give you a little message about people's opinion. 5 years ago, I was having a discussion with a friend of mine. He didn't know what the hell he was talking about. He says, well, Kevin, I have a right to my opinion. I said, you do not have a right to your opinion if you don't have context. I said, because if you think your opinion, if you're telling me something, if you're suggesting that your opinion has value without context, you're very dangerous. I said, so I don't accept when people say, oh, I have a right to my opinion, not without context, not without facts, because if you do that, you can be dangerous if you accept that. So I've cut that down over the last several years. Like, no, you don't have an opinion unless you have context. Remember that, everyone. You'll be around a lot of young people and they'll say, well, I have the right to my opinion. No, you do not without context. Because without context, it can be dangerous.
Well, here's the thing, though. Opinion is supposed to be a knowledge-based, thoughts, a pattern of thoughts, a knowledge-based set that's somewhat based off of things that can be, seen as facts, and it has like a very like pulling nature to it. That's like, okay, it makes sense. It's sensical. You can't have an opinion that's just off board and just doesn't hit no target. It's not connecting any dots. You have an opinion that's connecting no dots, then that means we need to, rechannel that. We need to rephrase something, or we need to make sure we fix something. Because if we're talking about history, then you can't have too much opinion about history. You can have feelings on things that happen, but opinions, you have to be like, oh, that actually happened, that didn't happen. It depends, like you said, on the context. And I think people like to overdo it with that, and that's why, in society in general, in every flaw in society, we have trouble agreeing with each other. You know what I'm saying? Women and men have trouble agreeing with each other. Friends amongst each other have trouble agreeing with each other. People in society, social people that are associates of each other have trouble agreeing with each other. People that are co-workers have trouble agreeing with each other. And a lot of it is based off what you're saying, opinions. If we sat there and focused on the facts more and built our opinions around those facts, then we would likely agree more, or at least have a balanced agreement, or be able to agree and disagree in a healthy manner.
I got to tell you, that's very well put. And it's great to, I got to tell you, I'm really happy that I'm talking to you tonight. This is good. I really like this. Really, really do. I moved to Florida. So I'm here in my house by myself. My wife is at my house in New Jersey. And I'm really enjoying it. I get up every day. I work out every day anyway, but I get up every day, work out, do my work. I took myself off the planes for a couple of months, because I've just been really like pushing it. And so I'm really relaxed, and I'm very happy that I'm talking to you guys tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Tyree, for coming in. He just wanted to introduce himself to you and meet you for, creating the platform and the stage and everything for us to be able to do this. So we appreciate you.
That's huge. I'm really proud of it. I am very impressed. Really am.
Appreciate it.
I'm going to tell all my colleagues about this. This is really nice.
We definitely appreciate it, man. We appreciate the acknowledgement, and we appreciate you coming up to speak with us, because the same way that you feeling impressed about this is the same way that you speaking and bringing knowledge hits us a certain way, makes us want to read more. We now at this point, I'm talking to some of y'all, and I'm like, damn, I need to start reading more.
That's
so
how
it's good.
I got to tell you, you're bringing up a very, very important issue. We don't read anymore, so we have no context. When I was growing up, man, the first book, now this is very interesting. I went to private schools all my life. I went to very good schools, and I read a lot. But the first book I read cover to cover, and really read it cover to cover. Now, I didn't read it just to get a grade. It's the autobiography of Malcolm X. My father brought that book into my bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning. Told me he wanted me to read it. I read that book, and it was a game changer for me as a young man. I think I might have been 14 years old. And I grew up in a family of leaders. I grew up in a community that raised black men to be leaders. I was an athlete all my life. I've worked and lived in New York. I've just had a great life, but I had a life built on the work that I put in. Nobody gave me a damn thing. Did I have some assistance? Yes. But I worked for everything I've ever gotten. And so my parents raised me to be that way. There's no free lunch. You have to earn your keep in this world. And what I'm seeing now is a lot of young men, they make up a lot of excuses about why they're not raising their families, why they're not loving their daughters and their sons, why they're not raised, because of the woman. Well, okay, fine, I get that, but that's your responsibility to raise your children and raise men and women. And I'm just appalled by that our young men are roaming the streets because they don't have fathers in the home to raise them. And then I understand the woman's issue. You have a lot of women that are anti-men. My wife and I talk about this all the time. I'm like, wait a minute, it's about being a man and woman together. It's not about fighting each other and trying to destroy each other. If you turn off your TV and you stop living in that fantasy land, you might try to understand that having a family and having a woman to love you and a man to love you is important for your children, And this whole thing about, a woman doesn't need a man, and this whole thing about a man thinking that he could sleep with 42 women, what an idiot. I mean, that is most ridiculous, but you know why? That's how they want us to be. We have programmed ourselves to be what they wanted us to be from the beginning. But you can't blame white people for that. I am so sick and tired. Listen, my mother and father grew up in the middle of Jim Crow. In the middle of it. We're young parents. We raised all 3 kids, and all my brothers and sisters, they're doing exceptionally well because they raised us to be men and women, and they raised us to be tough. They didn't raise us to be weak. They didn't raise us to be confused. You can tell me anything in school that I already didn't learn at home. We have to go back and recapture our communities and recapture our families and recapture our love for each other.
I want to point one thing out. I think what you're saying to me just reflects ownership, and I think this ownership that's in your mind is much deeper than owning a business. It's like owning your, like holding tight to your spirit, and really like something is telling me it's just like, yo, I gotta take order, I gotta take control, I gotta be disciplined, and I gotta take control of my life. And I just think that I needed to share to say that out of what you're saying, because at this point right now, it's no more time for excuses in our community for blaming the past or blaming some issue or anything like that. We need to get it together amongst each other. And this is not saying that it needs to be perfect by tomorrow, but this is saying that, yo, start to treat your brother better, start to treat your sister better, start to treat your grandparents better, start to treat your grandson better. You
Right.
have
Start
the
to take care of
mobility.
your kids. Start to take care of your children.
Right. You have the mobility to do these things, so start doing them. You know what I'm saying? Even if tomorrow you get up, drink a little more water, get some sun, talk to people nicely when if they make you mad, don't be so quick to, get at them. Let's try to work on things slowly. You know what I'm saying? Even that alone with consistency, a year of that, if everybody do that, by the end of the year, we'll be in a whole different place. So ownership is what I just want to shout out to the people, because we got to make sure we pinpoint solutions. And that's definitely a big time solution.
I got to tell you, I'm glad to hear that you say that, because that's important.